Hey there, Mobile Lab. In this video, I'm going to show you some of the basics of SceneKit and how to pull in a 3D model into your project. So this is the basic starter project you would create if you were to open Xcode and create a game project using SceneKit. So you've got your game controller, view controller here, and then in the folder here is where all your assets live. And by default, it gives you this spaceship, and you're given a 3D view. So just clicking around, you're able to rotate the view in the scene here. Holding Option lets you pan. Holding Option and mouse scroll wheel lets you zoom in and out. So I'm just gonna get comfortable with those controls. In the same way that you've got your navigator files over here and using a normal UI kit project, SceneKit's kind of the same setup. You've got your, again, your code and your assets over here. In here is where your 3D scene is, and here's your scene graph. So if you don't see the scene graph, it's the button here, and that gives you all of the elements that are currently in the scene. So if I come into here and let's say I wanted to add a box, I can just throw the box in here, and then you've got a box in the scene graph. And then similar to UI kit or interface builder view, all of your options are over on the right. So again, with the ship, I could click onto the ship mesh here, and it's given the materials. Actually, let's just set this to Phong shading. You could also change the shading here, physically based rendering, constant rendering. Let's go back to Phong. And then here, the ship, you can actually come in here, and you can see it's set to 0, 0, 0. So if I come here, I can set a different value. It'll move the ship. It's the same setup here. And we talked in class that all of the nodes here are based off of a tree structure. So everything has is a child to the parent node. But you could come in here. Let's see. I can create another sphere. So I bring the sphere in. Now the sphere is already just a child of the parent node, but I can make it a child of the box node here. So you can see that. So now when I move the box, the sphere moves. Okay. You actually could come and render this right here, running the simulator. Just a note that using other shading models will work in the simulator, but when you're using physically based shading models, you'll need to run that on your device. So let's stop that for a second. So how do we get different models? Oh, just really quickly, the reason that the ship is rotating is you come to the game view controller, and just simply in this code here, you're seeing that it's grabbing the ship by its scene graph name and then running an animation here. So you come back into scene graph and you could see that it's called ship. So if this was called something like, Mr. Smith or something like that, you would just access it again here. And just be careful when you look into the scene graph, because again, in the same way the interface builder could get confusing with nested objects, you'll have that same sort of challenge here. So let's grab another 3D model and bring it into the scene and see what that looks like. So we could use Turbo Squid. There's a bunch of other things online that you could use. I like using Turbo Squid. So you can come in here and see, let's check out the free 3D models. And the thing to be really aware of is that getting models into SceneKit, they need to be Collada models. Those are DAE files. There are other ways to convert, let's say, FBX files to DAE files, but ultimately you'll need a DAE file to get into the SceneKit view. So if you come in down here, actually let's go this way. We can check formats. You could actually filter on Collada. And these are all the different available Collada models. So there's this box here. Okay, you can download this, and it already has other file types, but the one we're really concerned with is Collada. You can download the FBX, I mentioned before, but you'll need to convert that to a Collada using another method, another utility. So I've already downloaded that here over my desktop. So if you look at the files that are in the folder, there's all different types of file types. But the ones we're really interested in is the DAE file. And again, it downloads the FBX because that's another file format. So I can drag that in here, and I can look at it. Now, there's a couple things going on. It's not orientation is a little off, but more importantly, the texture is missing. So if you come back in here, there was the texture file, target file. So now everything's nicely textured. Again, you can look around in the box, and then what I like to do, just because it seems to work better, you could keep it in DAE file, but there's a way. If you come into the product here, actually I can't remember what it's called. So there's a convert to SceneKit. So there's an editor, convert to SceneKit. So selecting the DAE file, and I convert to SceneKit, and this will convert, and that essentially takes the DAE file and converts it into the SceneKit. The reason we do that is it treats setting the different lighting models just seems to work better. So that's just something I do. Okay, so if you come into the ship, remember the ship scene is here, and I can actually just come in here and actually just drag this box into the scene, and now it's in the scene. Even though this box is in its own scene, you can think of the ship scene as sort of a container scene. Now I can come in here, use the handles, I could rotate that. Okay, and let's see, let's save it, let's try to run and see what this looks like. Okay, there's the box, and there's the rotating ship. So the other thing I want to show you, also just, let's just get rid of this, call this, let's call this brown box, because we already have a box here. Now the lighting model that we've used here, that comes in by default, is following. Now you use physically based rendering, but remember, physically based rendering, we need to set the background environment. It's more important that you set it here because this is your actual scene, but you could also set it in your individual scene here so you can see what it looks like with physically based rendering. So I've got another file here, skybox.jpg. I can just drag that into there, and then when I'm selecting here, I can come over to this icon. Oh, save anyways. Come over here, and I can pick that skybox, and I'll set that. You also need to set the environment. So that just sets the background, but this will actually set the environment. See how the color has changed? Now the color of the box reflects what's going on with the background. So just doing that, you can also change the intensity. See how the intensity just really makes, it's as if you are making the scene brighter or darker. So that's one way to look at your object model using physically based rendering. Now going back to the ship scene, let's do that do that same procedure over here. So let's set that to skybox. Actually, let's come back in here. Sometimes you have to save it, command save before it takes effect here. So it should be, oh, I didn't lock the background. There we go. So see how it's changed. Now notice how the airplane hasn't changed, only the box has changed. Not because I have to go to the airplane, the ship that is. Then the ship mesh, it's set at Fong, but now I changed to physically based rendering. See how it's changed. Let's do it. Let's try these with these guys too. See, everything is a different shading model. You notice how the ship has a different, it's kind of layered. It's got multiple nodes. There's this higher level node in the ship mesh. So just be careful when you're clicking around and changing the lighting models and making sure that where you are in the hierarchy. Okay, so I could run this on the on the simulator, but it just won't look good. You'll have to run this on the device to really get a sense of the lighting model. But actually, let's see what happens when you try to run on without on the device simulator. So it's not really physically based rendering. It's kind of slow, but you get the idea. You see how the ship is spinning here, and again, it's using the ship name. I could just, just to play around some things, I could come in here instead of calling the ship. What was that? What was that called? That was called brown box. Okay. So what we expect, right? So the box is spinning. So when you're looking at your code, just be wary of what's going on here. Of you're accessing the ship.scene. That's just the name of the sort of the container scene. This could be any scene, and then inside the scene it just happens to be ship, but it could be anything depending on how you name it, and then the scene graph name. So that's the very basics of getting a model into your scene and just tweaking the lighting, just doing something very simple using physically based rendering. So hopefully you'll get a hang of it, but definitely come into SceneKit and try to just play around with the controls. It's a lot of fun, so just to see things rendered very quickly. And that's about it for this video. Until next time.